Alright, following tm55203 testing sound, tone, alright. 55202 operation and maintenance of a diesel electric locomotive. Part 5, operation diesel electric locomotive. Chapter 15, operating instructions. 134, routine operation diesel electric locomotive is controlled by throttle and reversal and brake valves. Various instruments, protective devices, regulating devices contribute to the routine operation. The thorough general knowledge of various types of locomotives and careful observance of prescribed operation procedures are essential to the best operation. Rugged construction will not eliminate the effects of ignore or abuse specific information for individual types of methods obtained by the respective operational manuals issued by the manufacturer. 134. The preparation of service general necessary to inspect the locomotive maintenance terminals as well as intermediate points of following layovers and crew changes. Such inspections acquaints the operator with the condition of the equipment supplied. The following procedures are taken before starting the engine. Check the supply for the fuel oil, lubricating the oil, engine air, compressor oil, and engine governor. Oil cooling, water, sand, and water preparation, extreme cold weather conditions. See paragraph 114. Check all the lights. Switches are identified by the nameplates. Make certain all manually operated valves, electrical switches are there in their correct positions. The handle duplex fuel oil filters were installed, must be in proper position. Check the oil leaks. If the water leaks for more probable warming engine under the pressure and subsequent check under the conditions under such conditions is advisable. For multiple unit operation, be sure that all train jumpers and brake pipes are connected properly. Make certain that the rags and tools are not left carelessly near the locomotive diesel engine generated with the other equipment. 7. Check the loose of the dragging parts, worn and missing brake shoes. Inspect the visible wheels, defects. Check for the proper operation coupler knuckles at the both ends of the locomotive. If the engine has not run for the prolonged period for the test, the accumulation of the water in the cylinders, open all cylinders, test valves, turn engine in the complete revolution with an engine turning jack. B. A standard diesel engine. Each engine is related to power and being controlled by the individual control panel. Must be operated before locomotive controls the following actions. Be sure outside battery charging receptacle is not connected to the outside power line. See that the locomotive controls are in neutral, off in position, throttle, reserve, and lever, etc. Close the battery off. Close the battery out of the switch into the cabinet. Close the battery circuit switch in the cabinet. Main control switch at the control stand. Also close the fuel pump switch if the motor is not supplied through the control switch. The auxiliary generator switch is generally open to avoid the load of the turning in through the energized field of cranking. Other switches such as fans, ground relay, Other switches such as fan, ground relay, motor cutout should be in normal positions as directed in the instruction manual. Individual models. Press the start button firmly. Press the number 2 start button to start the number 2 engine. Locomotives equipped. Do not hold the prolonged intervals if an engine does not fire because continued cranking, discharging battery, lubricating oil pressure should be normal before releasing the start button. The low lubricating oil pressure shuts down the device is bypassed by during the starting of the will stop the engine. 6. After starting the engine, close the auxiliary generator switch. Check the battery for the proper charging. Observe the battery ammeter. Idle the engine until the engine water reaches the normal operation temperature. 136. Brake system inspection. While the engine is running, the brake system should be checked to make sure that the brake cylinder leakages operate properly. Air compressors provided adequate supply of the air. Pressure is regulated properly by the compressor governor. Independent automatic brake valves is operated properly. Condensation in the drain of the reservoirs. Piston travel in the proper adjustment. Pump air. B. Pump air at the high rate of placing the reverse lever into the off position, advancing the throttle until the desired pumping rate is reached. This should be done in standing still, making up the train when coasting down. Graded, recharging the line. The reverse lever is advanced, throttle the reverse up. The engine complying with the power of the compressor speed, increasing the engine speed increase. Inspection during operation. Operators will inspect the following equipment before moving the locomotive in appropriate intervals, therefore, to ensure the proper operation. Fuel, oil pressure gauge, lubricating oil pressure gauge, for the turbocharger, oil pressure gauge, engine water temperature gauge, main and control air temperature pressure system pressure gauges, horn, bell, ringer, and sander, window wipers, radiator fans, automotive manually operated radio shutters, traction motors. Locomotive must not move a train unless the traction motors are adequately cooled. A battery ammeter should not show discharge, while water level gauge, engine lubrication oil level, and hand metal edge lubricating oil strainers. 138. Moving the locomotive without the train. Generally, moving the locomotive without the train or light locomotives involves a certain elementary procedure, warning, discussion, separating consideration for the procedures used when moving the train. The following sequences should be followed by the engine man operators. Test air brakes, release handbrake, place the reverse lever into the forward. Test the air brakes, release the handbrake, place the reverser lever in the forward or reserve position, depending on the desired direction. Place on the foot lever on the dead man control. If so equipped, release the air brake. Advance the throttle slowly. The first few seconds consumed with the automatic closing of the power circuits, following which would load, the ammeter should register as a flow of current. The throttle may be advanced rapidly for further acceleration. If starting on an upgrade, do not release the brake until the throttle has been opened sufficiently to prevent the locomotive from drifting backwards. 5. Speed increased manually operated transition equipment should be handled and directed to operating instruction manuals for the specific type of the locomotive. 6. Retard throttle is required to reduce the power to the slowing down and the stopping of the ply brakes. Precautions. Locomotive should never be moved until the engine man operation has assured himself it is safe to do and no one in the position to be injured. Movement. The locomotive should never be operated speed faster than those speed limits posted in the cab. The restriction applies whether the locomotive is operating on its own power, coasting, or being deheaded or towed, because of the speed rotation of the traction motors, which are greatly geared directly to the axles, is limited. Excessive speed will be loosening armature coils and banding, reducing air gap, causing rubbing in the injuries, installation causing circuits to become defective. 139. Moving the locomotive with the train. More additional factors involved with the handling of the trains properly. The paragraph 149 routine procedures in addition with those in 138 are summarized below. The couple of the train, the connecting the brake hoses, the pump of the air, and the charge of the train line. When starting the take of the slack, gradually avoid slipping for the wheels, but possibly temporary slipping corrects itself. Persistent slipping should be corrected by retarding throttle slightly. Note: do not apply the sand while the wheels are slipping. Suddenly grabbing the driving wheels may cause the surges of current, flashovers, etc. Sand is used to prevent wheel slipping, using it sparingly. 140. Stopping the locomotives. A service stop must move the throttle to first running position. Hold it there for the load on the ammeter indicates the current has dropped. The preventing of the opening of the power circuits, the heavier the current of the flowing, the moving of the throttle to the idle, the off position. Now, stop position controllers would stop the diesel engine in the position. Transition should take the place with the slowing down, as well as when the acceleration of the brakes will be applied concurrently with the power reduction, but the power may be entirely shut off before the stop is completed. See paragraph 157N. Do not use independent brakes to stop a heavy train. Release the dead man pedal after the brakes have been applied. Emergency stop. Move the automatic brakes valves to the emergency position. Power should be shut off. On some locomotives, this is done automatically, but in an event it's necessary to move the throttle in the idle or off position before resuming service. 6. A layover. After stopping the engine, leave the cab of the diesel engine hour running. Precautions against the unauthorized accidental movement that must be taken. The principal precaution consisting of removing the reversal lever of the auxiliary generator field, which may be open in the desired. Removing all excitation. Engines may be running idling during the layover. Avoid frequent use of the battery for engine starting or to keep engine water from lubricating oil warm in cold weather. 141. Reversing the locomotive. Making sure the services come to a complete stop before attempting to reverse. Do not move the reverser level while the locomotive is still in motion. Do not thrift in one direction with the reverse lever. See the opposite direction. Electrical equipment may be seriously damaged if there is any disregard because the motor of the short circuit of the generator is lack of the back of the EMF. Change the reverser lever to the opposite direction. Release the brakes. Advance the throttle in normal manner. 142 cutting out traction motor. If the electrical failure shuts the short circuit of the ground occurs, the traction motor disconnect. It means the traction motor disconnects, and it means the traction motor cutout switch. Idle engines do not cut out the motors under load. In several part RA units removing the multiple, it is not necessary to retard the throttle. Isolating switch of the idle engine control switch is usually provided with the idle of the engine throttle is advanced. Opening the turning of the traction motor output out switch. The opening the turning the traction out switch for a type of the switch is load ammeter generally circuit with the read half the normal value in load limit is adjusted to reflect the 50% reduction in the circuit. The load ammeter one leg of the motor circuit will read the full number if it is in an unaffected circuit. The zeros if it is any cutout circuit. 143 the cutting out and restoring power unit. The faulty power may be out of the. It's not a faulty power unit may be cut out if it no longer deliver power for the traction, but can create operate the pump air. Charged batteries keep the engine water. This function in cold weather idle. A diesel engine setting the low motion isolation switch, engine control switch, whatever is provided. The unit multiple it may be isolated other than units operating the advanced throttle. It's usually possible to continue multiple unit operations from the isolated unit because of the control circuit continue to function. As an isolated unit may be put back in service merely running into the isolation switch, engine control switch is the normal position. 144 stopping the diesel engine. Generally, the diesel engine is stopped as shutting off the fuel supply. The method of doing the various of the individual design of the engine. Operators must be familiar with the methods of following the procedures applicable to the specific locomotive carrying the exercise to avoid stopping the engine immediately with the hard run water circulating pumps would also stop the water would boil. Idle the engine until the water temperature drops about 140 degrees Fahrenheit before stopping it. Normally stop, cool the engine idling speed, and then shut off the fuel supply, engine control switch, stop position, throttle switch. Throttle will shut off the fuel actuating the engine, shut off the valve of the governor in the certain installations. Opening the fuel pump switch in the power circulator was not opened by the stop switch. Open the auxiliary generator switch. Cutout stop. Certain procedures under the above may shut out all the engines in multiple unit connection. If one of the engines is be stopped using the individual control switch to your governor stop button. Emergency stop. A locomotive without a stop position and throttle, usually emergency engine stop, which is the control stand switch closed with the operating engine shutdown valves. With some locomotives opening the main control switch of the control standing with the stop of the engine. If in the rare event of the power of the motors is not to shut off, the throttle is retarded idle to stop the engine. The fuel output out pull rings, which are described later, are not used in quick engine stopping. Shutting down the locomotive engine will take the following actions. 1. Stop the engine in normal manner. Remove the reverse lever. Set the handbrake and rear. Release the air brake. Block wheels. Open the battery switch. In cold weather, take the necessary precaution to prevent the engine from freezing. 145 deadheading locomotives. Generally, a procedure of preparing the diesel electric locomotive out of the service of shipment made between various Army activities, installation, commercial repair facilities follows on flat cars. Prepare all 23, 25, 45 tons with 300 horsepower locomotives for the shipment located in commercial flat cars as follows. Close all the sealed ventilators. Close the exhaust stacks. Close the lock of all doors and windows. In freezing weather conditions, drain entire engine cooling system steam generator if it so is equipped. If anti-freezing protection has not been provided, remove the two-ended end battery connection leads. Tape and secure loose end of these leads. Place applicable manuals, accessories, inspection records, and data record sheets, locomotive cab, toolbox. In the addition, place the applicable parts of tools listed in the initial issue, the items shown in the appropriate manual in the toolbox. Look at the toolbox. Lock the locomotive toolbox forward keys. The receiving activity. C. On own wheels. Prepare locomotives on other than those indicated in B to be shipped dead on the wheels as follows. In addition to the first 6 items listed in B above, block reversers in neutral and throttle level in idle position. Open the battery traction motor out switches. All other manually operated electrical switches. Remove the pin and gears. Apply the loose fit dummy bearing spacers at 45, 45, and 47 ton, a 64-ton diesel electric locomotive with a single or double reduction axle driven. Open an 80-ton diesel electric locomotive equipped with a hypo gear disengage intermediate shaft with the traction motor pinion gear, the shifting intermediate with the gear shafting, relocating shaft spacer collar of the opposite. Side of the hypo gear to the housing, mounting of the proper lubrication oil level of the MRS 120-ton locomotive should be placed at the rear train with the traction motor brushes, pinion gears in the place of the reverse of the drum center and located in the position. 4. The maintain required lubricated oil level in the traction motor, support the bearings, show the proper condition of the position of the wick lubricators, provide the adequate lubrication reduction gear case. Lubricate all mechanical moving parts of the brake pins, levers, and check the condition of the brake shoes, air shows, renew as required. Inspect position condition, joint bearings, wedges, packings, turning all the loose ends of the strands of the packing, be center of the journal, repack dates to conform to the Army regulation, provide additional lubrication for all the journal boxes. Remove the brush of all traction motors. Generally prepare air brake system, diesel electric locomotive being hauled dead on own wheels as follows. Reduce the adjustment of the safety valve, disrupting the valve at 23 pounds. Place the automatic brake valve handle in the running position, independent brake valve in the release position. In addition, for the protection, either clamp the wire or handles. C. Close the double heading cock when equipped. Open the dead engine cock to dead position. Set the air brake cylinder piston to travel at 5 inches. Open the both angle cocks. Procedure for setting the dead engine of the on 6 SL brake system equipped with this double heading features as follows. Couple together the brake pipe hose. Open the brake pipe hose angle cocks. Place the handle on the broken valve to the running position. Set the N1A brake application of the valve K3 rotary valve in dead position. Open the dead engine cock of the 6DKR distribution valve. Plug the equalizing discharge valve in the vent requiring the valve the equalizing the discharge fitting the using the plug in the safe of the place of the locomotive place while operating like of the car or the train. When the locomotive has been in the use of the live engine prior to the dying dead engine, the main reserve pressure should be reduced to 20 pounds below the brake pressure. When it is desirable to keep the maximum brake power over the locomotive lower than the standard, reducing adjusting the safety valve with the distribution valve indicated in number 9A. Speed restriction should be held by the 35 miles per hour of the MRS 120-ton locomotives may be towed at 50 miles per hour. 12. The locomotives are prepared as previously outlined. Messenger services is not required of locomotives ship and freight and their own wheels if available desired, and sulfur heat in the pad, and stink bombs may be placed in the journal bearing or other traction motor support bearings in order to indicate hot spots or hot boxes. Train crew should be advised of these safety items that have been applied. 146. Operating the pusher or doubleheader. If a pusher or doubleheader service is controlled by each of the locomotive independently, a separate operated but service brake applications are made by the leading locomotive. However, the independent brake can be used so that the non-controlling locomotive can release its own brake valve brakes only to avoid sliding overheating of the wheels. Instruction individual type of the brake equipment, correcting the setting of the rotary dead engine cock of the double heading differs from multiple operation in that the locomotive need not the same type of each locomotive and its own operator. The connection of the use of multiple unit. 147. Multiple unit equipment and previously discussed in paragraph 86 is provided with the purpose of operating two or more compatible locomotives as one locomotive from one cab. Not all locomotives with multiple unit equipment can be connected with multiple individual operating instruction specific locomotives should be strictly observed in respect to only the general objective to discuss the controls of the throttle transmission. Brakes may be similar in connected locomotive. The reverse lever is removed from the trailing unit in order to deactivate the electrical control of the control switch at the opening of the trailing or the units because of the electrical jumpers between the units of the connection related circuits. The double heading cog of the brake pedal is placed with the trailing position. The air system that otherwise kept fully operated. The battery switch is kept closed in the trailing units. If engines is not running, it must be started its own control panel. If the engines are running, the locomotives are coupled. Their intervals with some circuits may be connected with two power sources depending on the individual design. Undesirable currents may be flow during the intervals in control switch in the traveling unit is open and usually practical to connect it with the manner without stopping coupling stopping the engine of the trailing under during the coupling operations. 148, the changing operating ends. When the operating controls to the and other cab control to both the power of the systems are established in the out in a new station. Out and out of the station is deactivated. General special application is made of the brake system. Reverse the lever handle to remove the cogs of the directed air brake instruction. Air control switches open the opposite action of the new station to avoid the stopping the diesel engine during the changeover. Is to be practically delay of opening the control switch, perhaps the fuel switch in the old station until the circuits have been established between the new station. 149, miscellaneous. The running through the water under absolute no circumstances should the locomotive pass through the water which is deep enough to touch the bottom of the traction motor. It is necessary to run through water in less depth and proceed the very slow speed of 2 to 3 miles per hour to avoid splashing the motors. Crossing over the tracks, reducing the throttle to the fifth notch, equivalent to the avoid excessive jarring, which under heavy loads may cause pitting of the communicators and keep the throttle of the position under the locomotive. All trailing units of traverse crossing. Rerailing locomotive. Do not apply the power to derail driving wheels. The traction motor and any serious motors will be seriously damaged in power if applied unloaded. The condition exciting the derail is spindly free and as move the derail locomotive than any other person. However, the power that may be kept the derail wheels on opening the proper traction motor output and an out switch, insulating the power unit on the 2-unit locomotive's power may be applied with the motors, repairing the service, attempting to recall the locomotive, resetting the engine overspeed trip. Normally, overspeed mechanism is provided a safety feature to stop the diesel engine from becoming excessive. All type so shut off fuel. Some of the by a type of trip shaft, fuel control shaft extending to the length of the engine, cut off the fuel injector, others dropping on the clutch gun and the governor. An alarm bell indicator light hums when the engine is stopped. This device is usually usually at one end of the command shaft to trip the central fuel force of flyweights acting at the spring which holds the tripping the lever to may reset the handling using the lever either mounted to the housing insert of the reset. Select type of the reset button. The reset procedure should be apparent at the side of the control switches related to the engine start should be at the same time the directed operating instructions for the specific locomotive. Recovery after the emergency penalty brake application. Following the emergency brake application, there is the loss of air brake and frequently interlocking electrical controls. The brake system must be recovered and interlocked and must be disengaged. The procedure for must installation. Place the automatic valve in the in the lap position. Remove the throttle from the idle position. Place the 4 on the safety control dead man pedal if installed. Allow application pipe to build up in 12 seconds. It's suitable to release the application portion and indicate the line is charged on the locomotives have indicated the connected with the pneumatical switches. The power off the switch light goes out of the equipment with reset the return brake valve. The running of the position. After handling long trains, when the 3 main factors of how holding a long train are throttle braking and slacking the action plus the knowledge of the route over which it is operating, the improper, the handling correct can be readily resulting in a broken coupler. Complete information must be obtained locally in printed regulation. Verbal information, actual experience, only the few typical circumstances can be given that emphasize its importance through the knowledge of such matters. We're going to zoom out here. This is the front of the engine where it has an overspeed trip set to set the governor and cylinder cover heads. Starting the train with the depends on not only the class of locomotive being used, on the type of the length of weight, the amount the slack free play at the couplings. The train, in addition to the great weather and conditions, and important the air brakes are complete with the release with attempting to start the train of a 100-car train having the average uniformly distributed length leakage as much as 9 minutes may be needed to complete the release. The brakes that requires approximately 30 minutes within 130 pounds main reservoir pressure to complete the charge to be completed air system on similar 100-car train, although generally unnecessary to bunch of slack and starting. There will be a case there where it is wise to do a tonnage training, which should be started in as low as throttle position as possible, bearing in mind the speed of the locomotive must be kept at minimum until the train has been stretched. Sometimes the advisor will reduce the throttle and movement of the locomotive begins and may move to order preventing the stretching. Also slow act too quickly. The engine man must be must be either judged the acceleration conditions in which the train is being started. The locomotive has moved far enough to completely stretch the train through the may advise not be advised of quickly slipping the results. If never necessary to move the throttle heavily except for the emergency. The throttle should be open with steady motion gradually enough to move the load of the wheels out of the slipping of the wheels. Slack action. Avoid quickly run out of the head of the avoid braking coupler. Quick run out of the can be caused by releasing the head of the free wheel rolling while the rear of the still braking, and this is especially likely in the independent brake has been if a rear heliper cuts the train at the top of the grade, stopping the train and only care is necessary. Avoid the slack adjustment. Always adjust the slack gradually, whether in or out. The adjusting slack, keep the train stretched, except deliberately bunching the stop of the special circumstances. A terminal brake test. A terminal brake test consists of the thorough inspection of the brakes and newly made of the trains after the brake pipe has been charged. Make the continuous reduction of the brake pipe pressure of the 15 pounds hold of the lap. Brake pipe pressure gauge should be shown the leakage will not exceed 5 pounds per minute. If the condition is satisfactory, make an additional reduction at a total of 20 pounds. The crew will then walk the length of the train to see if all the brakes are applied. All the cocks must be set that all the rear reserve charges and hence all the air brakes cylinders are responding. Piston and traveler shall also check the visual. Each of the cylinder signal will be given to the release of the brakes from the locomotive. The crew walks the length of the train to see all the brake releases. All retainers down. This is not holding the brakes. All handbrakes are released. The train is not ready to operate. The running brake tests are made with a slight application of release of the en route immediately after leaving the train. Running the brake test is also made prior to the certain downgrade operations. J. The brake pipe pressure. The field valve will be setting the various brake pipe pressure of the desired freight train and the passenger train services. Regulations sometimes specifically normal pressure in the smoothing brake over rolling terrain and increasing the additional braking in certain downgraded locomotive interchange between the freight and passenger services. Reset the feed valve to give the standard brake the air pipe pressure of the service in which the operation. The brake pipe charging. See paragraph 136 for quick pumping. The train should be not stopped on grade unless it is certain the train can be fully charged and all brakes are fully released before the speed of the train has been reduced to less than 10 miles an hour. Retainers will hold the train while the charging. 3. The cars are equipped with the type AB control valve with the sensitive quick pressure gauge and the brake pipe. The low brake pipe pressure which will respond to the emergency application of the brakes are needed before the normal pressure is built up. Before the brakes are applied with the moving of the freight until it's stopped, and when the forward end of the is downgraded and the rear end of the level is extended in the grade, ascending the grade, there is a curve of the rear end of the actually acting as a brake. Load cars are at the front of the empty cars at the rear of the train. The excessive brake pipe leakage is developed en route, and all the conditions of equivalent to extra bleeding of the rear end of the release would probably permit the quick run out of the head out of the sufficient force of the part of the train. Retainers. It is must necessary to release the brakes while running into the brake pipe. The leak which would cause the great terrain line reduction. An intermediate level of the train to upgrade the long mountain descent would cause the train to stop and the brakes would not be released. The recharge of the auxiliary reserve so that do not follow below the predetermined pressure that run the retaining the valve that provided on cars. The braking effort, the charging that are set on the certain to keep the brakes applied with these cars to prevent the train from running while the train is also being recharged. It is necessary for the release in order to recharge the number of the cars, the retainers, the set of the valve, at the grade of the tonnage of the training. Information must be obtained by the local operation governing the movements of the specific grade. Some retainers provided for the gradual release, as well as an absolute holding. Braking with power. If the braking while power is applied, remember that at any given the throttle of the draw pull bar rapidly increases the train speed, decreases the pull might become great enough to pull apart the train unless the throttle is reduced the train speed drops. The pull of the locomotive indicated the amperage of the load meter of the engine man make constant pull on the train during the slowdown and maintaining the steady amperage loading meter that accomplishes reducing the throttle notch whenever applicable amperage starts and increase the independent brake should be the full release during the power of the braking. The throttle must be in the idle position before stopping. Brake pipe reduction prior to the release. After stopping the long track train line, airline pressure may vary sufficiently to lack required differential release brake with the rear of the train. Therefore, the advisable make on the 15-pound reduction 80-car train, 20-pound reduction 120-car train, and 25-pound reduction of the longer trains if ordered in subsequent release of the rear end brake or the broken coupler can cause by brake shoes holding in the rear. Defective brake cutout. Defective brake cutout. Defective train brakes may be cut out if necessary, not more than one car in 7. One of the freight cars closed out the cut brakes in the brake pipe, the branch pipe drain, and the reserves on the car. One passenger alone with the cutout cock and both brake of the pipe, branch pipe of the brake cylinder. Mixed train restriction. Mixed train is both freight and passenger, usually restricted for the freight train. Especially freight train brake pipe with the pressure of the passenger equipment is generally placed at the locomotive. The heat of water raising equipment is kept overheating. The graduated release of the feature should be set for the direct release. Some features of cars are equipped with the passenger services without any adjustments. 150 operating difficulties. Generally, when the faults are developed, it's required to develop the routine operation. The crew should determine whether they can continue to operate, whether any can correct the trouble, and is discussed in B below. Although understanding of this manual should enable the crew to check equipment with other instructions, but many of the faults occur, and seldom of the following summary of the special procedures may be also useful. Low oil pressure alarm. Low oil pressure indicating given all engine shutdown is therefore necessary to determine whether any other reason the engine shut down since the alarm bell rings. For all alarm indicators except for the wheel slip, the crew should first observe indicator lights to determine whether they are another device, such as water temperature, which is a ground relay has stopped the engine. In several units of connected multiple unit operation, the bell rings on all units. The indicator light comes on only for the faulty unit. Low oil pressure signal. The unit must be corrected in order to operate. When the unit is corrected, but the multiple operating may continue to operate after the faulty unit is measured and isolated, provided with the load limits described in paragraph 76 are observed. Water temperature, and the crew must know whether the protective system that stops the engine. The ideal engines merely gives the alarm. The several units are connected with the multiple unit operation bell ringing of all units. The indicator lights come on only the faulty unit. If the locomotive has means of the automatic regulation for the if it automatic regulation of the fan motors can be bypassed, the usually so-called manual position of the fan and switches operator may be resumed. Water temperature under the circumstances may not be the usual operating range, may be within the safe operation. If the crew cannot bring the water temperature down the safe operating range, then they must shut down or be isolated. The ground alarm. The ground relays reset button is lit by the ground indicator. The attempt to resume the service of the ground ground was temporary condition. The ground indication persists in the necessary to use the unit. Open the ground relay outlet switch to operate the. It is for the emergency use only. For information, paragraph 95 should be followed exactly with situation of rise of the ground through the traction motor out of the motor out of the circuit. Wheel slippage indication for power automatically decreasing. Wheel slipping there restored slipping. It is not necessary to reduce the throttle. Becomes momentary. Wheel slipping, repeated slipping under the poor rail condition requires a reduced throttle. The proper use of sand will minimize wheel slippage. Sand should be used to prevent not to overcome slippage. To prevent but not to overcome wheel slippage. All right. 151 troubleshooting. Generally, difficulties cannot be the alternative operating methods described in paragraph 150 require the observation of the trouble system to determine whether the minor remedies will make the possible operation. The most prevalent troubles are open. The circuit breaker is burned out of the fuse, the dirty, clogged oil lines, leakage, defective interlock, solutions, broken electrical connection. For the method of correcting operation, the method is referred to the specific trouble, directions of application of the respective models of the locomotive. Some familiars with during the operation, including difficulties starting and are caused by the careless departure of the operating rules instead of the defective equipment. The following list includes the failures most common in the diesel electrical locomotive. The usual cause of the failures are indicated. The list can be used as the general guide to all specifications of each of the pieces of every equipment. The operation maintenance the manual which applies the equipment to the question referred to before taking the corrective action. B. The engine does not turn over. The battery control switch may be open, closed then. Battery and the control fuses may be blown. Battery may be down to the recharge. Electrical connections may be poor. Engine start may be defective. Starter switch may be defective. Engine heat may be too low for starting. Start hot water heaters. C. Engine turnover but not fires. Check the fuel supply. Fuel lines over the broken clogged governor with the inoperative. Fuel lines may be airbound. If so, prime them. Fuel filter may be plugged. If so, cleaning. Emergency fuel shutoff may be closed. Fuel pump not running. Check circuit. Water pump may be in water may be in the fuel. D. Locomotive does not move without the engine running and throttle open. Brake may not be released. Brakes may not be released. Battery and control switches may be open, close. Electrical connections may be poor. Reverse lever may be in neutral, move to proper position. Locomotive moves very slowly. Drags may be too heavy off the cars. Brakes may not be fully released. Blade line. Many generators may be not delivered full power. Locomotive remains in low speed. The traction motor is not making the transition. All traction motors are not operating. The G locomotive moved the throttle off. The throttle valve is stuck open. The close by hand. Open control switches applied to the brakes. And then H, the engine stops. Fuel supply is exhausted. Refill the tank. Fuel line is broken or fouled and replaced. Fuel filter is plugged. Low lubrication oil pressure bar engine over the city that is not blocked in obstruction. There is a faulty governor or throttle linkage. Governor inoperative. Check fuel rack. Engine overspeed. There is a faulty governor, improper fuel pump racking set, or low overspeed tripping setting. Engine overheats. Water is low. Check the leaks for refill the faulty water pump replaced. Radiator is plugged or dirty. Lubricating oil or not cooling properly. Fan belts are slipping or renew. Heat exchanger lubricating oils cooler is plugged. The shutters closed in the non-functional checking operation. 7. Engine overload. 8. Of the water hoses collapsed or replaced. K. Engine replaced before picking up the load. Main generator field is defective. Excitation fails to build up properly. 11. L. The battery does not charge. Blown battery charging. Generator fuse renew. Faulty electrical circuits. Generator brushes faulty clean. M. Air pressure does not build up. Main reserve drain valve is open. Close. Brake pipe angle clock is open. Close. Pilot valve stuck open. Close. Under valve stuck open. Underloader valve stuck open. Compressor belt slip air broken. Replaced. Faulty compressor repair. Air pressure builds up slowly. Long train requires a long time for the charge. Compressor belts are slipping. Underloader valve is stuck open to close the broken pipe of the loose fittings. Faulty governor. Brake reapply after regular release. Brake pipe is overcharged, making the partial brake application return handle to the running position. 2. The faulty feed valve replace. P. The brake holds the release application. Brake pipe undercharged or faulty distribution valve. Q. Low braking power. Too much brake power. Cylinder travel adjust the faulty position. Faulty piston. Worn brake shoes. Replace low brake cylinder pressure. Broken brake cylinder pipe. Renew. Brake cylinder pressure to the high. Feed valve stuck of distribution valve sticks. Sander does not operate. Wet or dirty sand cleaning out the trap. Refill the box with clean and dry sand. Kicking the hot hoses, pockets of the hose, clean out the straighten the hose, blocking the sand pipe, clean out the pipe, broken sander, replace it. 2. The broken pipes, main brake and pipe troubles are similar on all types of brakes. The reference must be made in the individual diagrams for soil service typical description of the 6BL brakes following the fouls. Main reserve pipe. If the main reserve pipe breaks between the reserve and the brake valve of the pedestal in such a way that it cannot be repaired, the locomotive brake can be applied by either brake valve. Main reserve brake pipe. If the brake branch pipe of the main reserve pipe of the distributing valve breaks between the main reserve and the cutout cock, plug the main reserve side of the brake. Close the branch pipes, cut out the cock. Locomotive brake is the inoperative train branch brakes that can be operated usual manner. Brake pipe. If the brake pipe branches the distributing valve of the broken pipe of the lug of the end of the leading of the brake valve of the train brakes can be operated with the usual manner, or the locomotive brake cannot be operated with the automatic brake valve. The locomotive brake can be operated with the independent brake valve and the valve ordinary. way to accept the independent brake valve with depressed release it with the brake and the head with the brake pipe with the distributing branch of the brake pipe, the valve with the brake pipe braking and may be plunged in. The effective operation of the brake pipe occurs between the brake pipe, the distributing valve, with the branch pipe, and the automatic valve, brake valve, the plug of the distributing valve, and then side of the pipe closing the brake pipe out of the out cock. This will impossibly apply to the release of the brakes of the automatic brake valve, but they may be applied to the released by the independent brake valve. Brake cylinder and pipe. A broken brake cylinder pipe permits main reserve to escape when the brake pipe is applied. The main cause the release of the one or more of the locomotive brake cylinders is depending on upon where the broken occurs. The brake cannot be repaired. Close the out cock and the pipe leading into the braking pipe. If the brake occurs mixed distributing valve reserves. Close the out cock of the main reserve supply with the pipe. Of the distributing valve of the locomotive brakes can be not applied. The train brakes cannot be operated normally. Application cylinder pipe. An application of cylinder pipe brake at the plug of the distribution valve with the brake of the locomotive brake cannot be applied with the independent brake valve in the emergency maintaining the feature of lost locomotive brake of the valve, however, applied with the usual automatic brake valve and the released in by the valve of the running position. Distributing the release of the pipe, the release of the pipe, the holding the feature of the lost, and it is impossible to keep the locomotive brake fully applied with the independent brake valve unless it's open for the distributing valve at the brake side and closing the brake. This should not extend to the possibility of switching to the surface where independent brake valve is mostly used. When necessary to keep the independent brake valve in the release of the position at all times with the desired release of the locomotive brake, the locomotive's distributing valve inside of the brake should be left open to the brakes controlled by the automatic brake valve until the repair is open. It's equalizing reserve pipe. In the case the brake was equalizing the reserve pipe, the plug of the pipe of the brake pipe valve also plugs in the brake shoe. The pipe at the surface of the exhaust to the pipe of the brakes more handle the acute automatic brake valve gradually toward the emergency position, making toward the desired brake pipe at the surface reduction gradual and direct. Return to the handle gradual lap position. Safety control pipe. In the case of the brake between the safety control out cock and the N1A brake application valve, there is no overspeed of the train control of the locomotive more. The cock on the application portion of cover the out position, otherwise plug out of the brake of the application valve side of the brake shoes may be operated normally with the safety control nullified. Application pipe number 10. If the brake occurs at the branch of the safety control valve of the reserve of the brake of the application pipe side, in this case the safety control warning type of the period. If the brake occurs elsewhere, the could application of portion to cover the N1 brake, the application valve, the port, and the out position nullifies all the control applications. Number 8 pipe, the brake pipe plugs the broken pipe in the application valve. The brakes may be operated normally if the feature requires the lapping of the automatic brake valve of the handle to release the brake valve to control the application and loss during a safety control application. The application valve of the cycle. The equalizing pipe, regardless of the location of the pipe, the plug of the distribution valve with the setting, the transfer operating, the cock of all any units operating with the multiple unit control lead at position, closing the equalizing point of the connection cocks. The brakes will operate normally except for the independent brake valve. The control of the trailing unit will be lost. The transferring the valve of the operating pipe. If the pipe of the turning transfer the valve of the operating pipe to leave the position, leave it in the position. Brake is operating normally except for the locomotive operated with the trail independent in brake of the valve with the control of the brake of the unit and will list. The main reserve existing equalizing pipe train in the multiple unit and an arrangement. If there's brake pipes, main reserve, the number 15 connection, 3 position brake pipe, cutout cock, and number 1A brake, N1A brake, the application of brakes may be replaced. Otherwise, there will be no pressure to keep either the brake pipe out of the out cock seated. The brake, any of the location in between the end of the each connection cutout, plug the main reserve inside of the brake and close all the main reserve of the connection cutout cocks. If the brake occurs on the end of the connection between the units, and close all the ends of the connection cutout cocks. And if it is not necessary to close, then the cutout cocks units equipped with the compressor governor and synchronizing the governor system must be set to permit the governor each of the control compressor independently. The imperative to avoid excessive main reserve, the pressure of the trailing unit. The brakes will be operated normally, but the main reserve supply in the air of the train brake and limited to the load lead unit system. Chapter 16, Locomotive Application.